I first met Christopher Weatherby in January 1959 when I was working for the Governor-General of Australia, and I was asked out for drinks on Sunday before lunch, and amongst a group of people I asked him what part of Australia he came from, and he looked at me horrified and said, "I'm English." And that was Christopher Weatherby. We chatted away, and it was only a year later I had been talking to the Trade Commissioner at Australia House, who said, "What about stockbroking? There are some firms in London who have Australian departments," and he gave me the list of them, of 3 to try, which I promptly lost. At that point, I had met the chairman of the Australian New Zealand Bank, and I told him where I was hoping to go, and he rang Christopher Weatherby and said, "I've just seen a young chap. I like the look of him. I think you should take him on." Christopher said years later that was why he offered me a job. Christopher Weatherby was not an easy person to work for, but on the other hand, I had great respect for him, but he just had a very short temper, and was always the best of friends after hours for drinks in the evening. At that point, in the early days, I was living in London, he was living in Buckinghamshire, and he was commuting from Buckinghamshire to the office in London, so therefore there weren't many opportunities to meet socially, but every now and again we'd say have some Australian who might be over here, and he'd say, "Well, come and join us for dinner or something in London," something like that. That's how it would work out, but it wasn't a very extensive relationship until, of course, later when I bought his house in this village. Sheila and I had been married a couple of years, and we had a baby called Henrietta, and we were quite keen to move out of our little house in Chelsea where we were living. Just pure coincidence that we should be in the market for a Buckinghamshire house at a time when he was selling his Buckinghamshire house. But it worked out, and he was very kind because I couldn't sell my house in London. He was quite prepared to wait for the money for this house until I had done so. No, it hasn't changed at all. I mean, sadly he's been dead a few years now, but right up to the end, obviously when he'd retired, he was down here in the village in Wadden. We didn't see a lot of him, but the relationship was unimpaired, shall we say. The good lessons I learned from him were that, if you're going to succeed, you've got to be highly, particularly selling anything, in this case it was stocks and shares, you've got to be extremely enthusiastic and keen on what you're doing. And he used to talk about you've got to be a raging ball of fire, was an expression he used. I don't say go to that extent, but I know what he meant, and I think that is so. I hope in many ways I'm not at all changed as a person, but from the point of view of knowledge and experience, I think all of us, whoever we meet, are going to be affected by the people who are our relations or our bosses, who are other contacts. The highlights of my life, people who are great personalities and characters, I think, will leave a strong impression on you. That's what life is all about, isn't it?